Call this meeting to order. 103, Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. 104, approval of tonight's agenda.
Make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
A motion by Charlotte, seconded by Allison. All those in favor say aye. 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 Motion carries. 105, ceremonial swearing in of the governing board members. Dr. Driscoll?
Well, I have the honor to introduce Mayor Corey Woods. I believe he's coming up to do the ceremonial swearing in, so I'll bring him up.
Perfect, thank you. All right, so we've got 3 governing board members who are being sworn in this evening. So if I could have Allison Ewers, Jim Lemon, and Ray Theory join me down here in the front. I would say you would think after all the meetings that I've done, I would know how to turn on a microphone by now, but different setting, you just freeze up a little bit. All right, so if you could please all raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution and laws of the state of Arizona, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and defend them against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of the office of governing board member for the Tempe Elementary School District, according to the best of my ability, so help me God, or so do I affirm. Congratulations.
Thank you again to the mayor. 106, reorganization of the governing board, election of president. Charlotte?
I would like to nominate Allison Ewers based off of her advocacy on the state and local level for public education, her fervor for public education, and her complete commitment to Tempe Elementary School District.
I would second that. Will you accept?
I accept the nomination. Thank you.
All right, I have a motion by Charlotte, seconded by Jim. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Aye, motion carries. Allison's our new president. And I suppose as my last act, I'll move forward for the election for the vice president, and then we'll switch seats. It'll be a whole thing. 107, election of the vice president.
Mr. President, we have 3 board members who have children in the elementary district. We have 2 teachers who have taught here in Tempe. And so I think any of those would make a great addition as vice president.
Excellent. Very good. Do you have a name attached with anything you would like to?
Well, I would, you know, when I first got on the board, I was vice president. I knew nothing about some of the procedures. So it was really helpful to be on the vice president and the agenda committee, and you learn a lot. And so I would ask if Ray is interested in that.
Only a Charlotte's not going to fight me.
Oh, there'll be a rumble afterwards, that's okay.
Okay.
Just kidding.
Yes.
We have a motion by Jim, seconded by Charlotte for Ray to be our vice president. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. He's our vice president. Now comes the very fun part where we all switch chairs.
Just got settled.
Thank you. Now we'll go to 2.01, presentation of the 2024 Governing Board President, Eric Miller. Dr. Driscoll?
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I'd like to take this moment to thank our 2024 president for his year of service. As Governing Board President, Mr. Eric Miller approved boundary changes for Thew, Frank, Nevitt, and CMS to ensure students attend schools closest to their home address. He approved the rebuild of Connolly and Curry schools, successfully passed the MNO and DAA overrides, supported the district to receive grant funding to purchase electric buses and infrastructure, and we are the largest recipient in the state for such award, and supported the partnership with the Toyota Foundation, which resulted in the district receiving over $5 million to provide STEM and food mobility programs and services to our students. I appreciate your leadership, your thoughtfulness throughout this year. Thank you for taking on this responsibility. Thanks for the countless hours and dedication that you put into this role. Your most important accomplishment that happened while you were governing board president was when my Michigan Wolverines beat the Washington Huskies for the 2024 National Championship. I couldn't pass it up because a year ago we had a conversation about that, and I have a small token of gratitude for you. Go Blue.
Eric, would you like to say anything?
I appreciate all those kind words. The Huskies did beat Michigan in September of this year, so they had a small payback in that respect. But it's all worth it really to help the kids, and so that's really why I'm here. And really, I am supported most by my fellow board members. So anything I do is really for them. And above all of that, it's the staff. And so I just want to thank really all the staff for all they do. So thank you.
Thank you, Eric, for everything this year. 2.02, presentation, the introduction of the 2024-2025 interest-based negotiations team. Mr. McGinney.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Driscoll. This is a brief presentation, but a really exciting one. This year marks our 20th year participating in interest-based negotiations for our district. So it's very exciting. Per policy HD, we have two groups that are recognized in interest-based negotiations. We have our district administration team, and then we have TEEA. who are recognized to enter into negotiations. And so tonight I want to introduce the team members that were able to make it, and then kind of just give some overview of the process and where we're at. So I'll start us off, and then I'll ask for Mr. Gonzalez to come over to introduce the association side. So on the district admin team, we have myself, and we have Mr. Eric Thompson, our Chief Financial Officer. We have Colleen Love, Principal of Curry Elementary, and I don't know where if I saw her. There she is, okay. She's gonna be our non-voting member, and it'll be her first year on the team, so we're really excited to have her voice on the team. We also have Miss Bernice Sharp, who's been a long-term member of the IBN team. She is the principal of Nevitt Elementary.
Dr. Sharp.
Excuse me, thank you for that correction, Dr. Sharp. That was my one opportunity, wasn't it, Dr. Sharp? Okay. We also have Mr. Matthew Strauss, I'll get that one right, principal of Aguilar Elementary School. So, and I'll have Mr. Gonzalez come over here to introduce the association.
Thank you, Mr. Guinea. Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Driscoll. So introducing the rest of the team. So myself, I am the IT Customer Support Manager. Allison Holden, who's in the back, she is our PACE teacher at Ward. We have Christina Palmerin, she is our office manager at Conley Middle School. We have Taylor Webb, she is our language arts teacher at Mosley Middle School. Kelly Blusick, who is also in the back right there. She is our behavior interventionist at Aguilar Elementary. And then our non-voting member is Sean Coker. He is our carpentry manager over at the Brogan facility. So that would be the rest of our team, and then we'll go ahead and have Mike give our introduction. It is our 20th year, so it's very exciting.
It is. So one of the really cool things about interest-based negotiations that I want to remind the board as we enter into this is that every employee in our system has a voice. Their voice is through the IBM process. We send out an annual survey. That survey actually went out on December 9th of this year prior to winter break and closed yesterday at 5 p.m. So we gave a very large window for people to voice their input on salaries, benefits, working conditions. What the team does is we take and we compile that information, we enter, we actually go through line by line and read every single comment that is made on the survey. After going through that process, we do create a list of hot topics, and then from there, we go through our process of trying to create a plan that we present to Dr. Driscoll and then ultimately to you as the board for approval. Anything that's approved by the board goes into our work agreements and contracts for the following year. So this is done annually, and we're really excited about this year. We've already met because we seem to get to the end of the process and go, we gotta hurry up, hurry up. So we've already met as a team to come together and talk about those hot topics. We're gonna really dive into the survey. Our next meeting will be next Friday, the 17th, and we're really excited about really getting started in it, so. And if you have any questions, I'll answer those. Otherwise, this is our team, and we're excited for our 20th year.
Are there any questions? No, Mr. McGinney, I'd just like to say how much I appreciate this process, and thank you to everyone who has volunteered to do this. I know that it's going to take a lot of extra time that you're unpaid to do, but you're going to be representing our staff, our teachers, and our children, and I'm grateful that we do it this way so that you're representing yourself instead of us just telling you what we want from you. So thank you, Mr. McGinney. Okay, for the invigorating presentation of 2.03, the open meeting law. To everyone that's still here in the room with us, thank you for staying. This is going to be really interesting, and you don't have to stay, but it might be interesting for you to know why we don't always answer your emails directly back. And what rules and regulations we have on what we can and can't do. So thank you.
Madam President, thank you for that very appropriate introduction for our presentation. And just before I get started, it's really nice to see the collegiality between your board members, because that's not something we see with every board that we work with. So kudos to you. So my name is Carrie O'Brien. I'm an attorney from Gust Rosenfeld, and I've been working with your district for the better part of 6 months now. So they asked me to come and speak with you tonight about the open meeting law, which as a public body within the state of Arizona, you're obligated to comply. The goal of the open meeting law is to allow the public to know what the governing board is doing. So I want our presentation to be meaningful, and please ask me questions if you have them along the way. So I'm going to briefly talk on just different problems we've been seeing with school district governing boards, and then I'm happy to answer any questions. So the interesting thing about the open meeting law is that it doesn't stand alone. It interacts with other responsibilities that you have as a governing board. So the ways you can see the open meeting law is in the middle, and then your different responsibilities as a governing board are in the boxes around it. So for example, when you're considering an expulsion of a student or you're considering terminating an employee, you have to do that in a manner that complies with the open meeting law. So sometimes that might require that you meet in executive session to review confidential student records or personnel records. You also have to comply with conflict of interest laws in a way that complies with the open meeting law. And so there's different ways in which your board will operate to comply and fulfill its obligations as a school district. So what's a quorum? A quorum is simply a majority of your board. Vacancies count towards that. You don't have any vacancies right now. So for your 5-member board, a quorum would always be 3 members. So for any matter that comes on your agenda, it has to pass by 3. So if for some reason you had 2-2, then the matter would not pass. So there's always a lot of questions about abstaining and whether it counts towards your voting. So if you abstain as a member, you still have a quorum. Does abstention count as a no vote? No, it does not. We recommend, if the question were to come to us from a governing board member, that unless there was a conflict of interest, a statutory conflict of interest, that board members vote a matter up or down rather than abstain. We've seen a lot more abstentions, often around political issues. And so just for open meeting law purposes, it's better if the member votes up or down so that they issue, their opinion to the public on the matter. So agendas. So agendas are always challenging, and you have a great governing board secretary who prepares your agendas. One thing that we see come up a lot is how specific does it have to be? So the public needs to understand by your agenda items what's the possible action that's going to take place. Your governing board uses board docs, right? So there's items within it that talks about, for example, the recommended action of the administration, and that's intended to give the public notice of what the board might do, so then the public can decide whether to come to the meeting or not. One issue we see a lot is whether, so you have to publish your agenda 24 hours ahead. Most boards publish them online. They also have physical posting locations. Can you change an agenda once it's been posted? Generally, the answer is no. For example, if I changed my presentation for tonight's meeting, last minute, that would be okay. A governing board or an administration can't add, for example, an additional employee that wants to be hired ahead of that 24-hour period or add a voucher on ahead of that 24-hour period. That needs to be solid for the 24-hour notice period. So as governing board members and your superintendent, you can provide a brief summary of current events at each board meeting. And I assume that happens on most agendas. Is that right, Heather? For most agendas, you have that? So we get questions a lot on what does brief summary of current events mean? It's supposed to be related to what's happening in your school district. I have worked with other districts where a board member might use that opportunity as a moment to express public opinion on an issue outside of the scope of what the governing board's authority is. That's always a delicate issue, right? So in those cases, I usually suggest that the board president remind board members ahead of the presentations that you're supposed to maintain the boundaries, which are a brief summary of current events. So most often what we see is, the superintendent's telling you what great things have been happening at your schools in the district. Board members might be talking about events they went to in the community to let the public know what's happening in the school district. So let's talk a little bit about technology, right? So you have these great tools, right? You have email, you have text. How does that interact with the open meeting law? So it gets messy. So our recommendation is usually that the superintendent push information kind of one direction to board members, that it's not used as a dialogue between board members. So your superintendent might give you a weekly update and telling you what's happened in the district during the week. Essentially, the open meeting law prohibits board members from using email as kind of a conduit to hold a meeting, right? So you can't discuss or propose items that might come before the board in a future meeting. So we sometimes get open meeting law complaints where someone's alleging something's happened over email, and then we're required to produce those emails to the Attorney General's office. So our rule of thumb is to use your email for professional purposes. I assume you all have Tempe Schools email accounts, right? So it's really good to keep your personal email separate from your governing board email. The hardest thing is if we get a request from the Attorney General for emails and a board member conducts board business on a personal email account, right? We don't want to have to ask board members to look in their Gmail and provide us with documents. So just kind of keeping those things separate is a really good rule of thumb. Text messages, can they be a public record? Yes, they can be, if there's district business going on. So we know that in general, people are using texts all the time, right? I text with clients sometimes. It's just kind of a quick and easy way to get information. But just like emails, it matters the content of the message, not the mechanism you use to transmit the message. So just like emails, your text messages could be a public record. So I'm not sure, does the district provide board members with cell phones? No? Okay, great. So then I would suggest not texting between board members. That just keeps it nice and clean, right? So if for some reason you get a public records request for text messages of governing board members on a specific topic, then you can just tell the person who asked the question that you don't text about board business. So that just keeps it nice and clean. One thing that's always a good rule of thumb for the open meeting law is to avoid using your phone while you're on the dais, right? You might be texting someone about when you're getting home, right? Or please pick up milk or something for school lunches the next day, but the public doesn't know that, right? So if you're on your phone, scrolling or texting, the public might think, are they talking about board business, right? And that should happen in an open forum. So it's just a good idea not to be on your phone during a board meeting. And again, keeping your phone and your email and text messages separate from any district business. All right, so let's talk a little bit about statements to the press. So social media is used a lot by board members. I have seen situations recently where, candidly with more divided boards, where perhaps a board member who felt like they weren't heard during the board meeting expresses their disagreement through social media. This could be a public statement. It's not necessarily a violation of the open meeting law, right? Because it's kind of one board member expressing their opinion on something. That's not an issue with quorum, or it doesn't trigger the open meeting law. One thing to stay away from would be using the district's logo in any kind of social media post, right? Because that just gives the appearance that it's an official board statement or board action, when in fact it might not be. All right, calls to the public. So if there's a controversial issue on your board agenda, or if the public has concerns about something that's coming before the board, common topics might be boundary changes. That's probably the biggest thing I've seen recently. The district can implement reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions, right? So you might not want to spend 2 hours listening to members of on a call to the public if you can hear the concerns of the public in a different way. So there are tools you can use to hear from the public in a way that doesn't clog up your board meeting. So sometimes boards suggest that members of the public submit their requests by email. Another mechanism where a board was just getting bogged down with many, many members of the public wanting to speak at board meetings, they implemented a tool on their website it said, we listen, right? And it invited the public to come and talk to administrators if they had concerns about something that was happening at the district. So there's different ways of dealing with that. So if for some reason there is an issue around calls to the public becoming unruly, the board president can also always call for a recess. And then if a board member wants to respond to a call to the public, you can do so in compliance with the open meeting law only at the conclusion of all the calls to the public, right? So I work with a district that had an open meeting law violation where the board president responded kind of in the middle of calls to the public. And that was a no-no because the open meeting law clearly says you have to wait until the conclusion of all statements from the public. And it's not supposed to be a discussion. The typical response from the governing board at the conclusions of the call to the public might be to ask Dr. Driscoll to look into the matter and report back to the board. But it's not usually a good idea to get into a discussion if someone's expressing their disagreement on the dais. All right, so I just want to talk briefly about executive sessions because I'm getting way in the weeds in open meeting law and I don't want to bore you to death. But there's 8 reasons why you can convene an executive session. And that's a time when the board and then staff that you determine are needed to be in the discussion is held outside of the presence of the public. So the highlighted items are the most common reasons why your board might convene into executive session. The most typical one where I would be with you would be for legal advice, and you have to have an attorney present if you're convening an executive session for legal advice. We talked a little bit about you can have the persons you've determined are necessary in your executive session. That's most always includes your superintendent. For personnel, the district would be required, if, for example, you were reviewing an employee in executive session for a statement of charges to terminate the employee, you might have a notice of an executive session for personnel. The employee doesn't necessarily have a right to come into the executive session, but they can get the minutes from the executive session. The board could invite the person in, but is not legally required to do that. And then the board secretary also has to give notice to the employee 24 hours ahead, and they could request that that discussion happen in public. I've never had an employee request the discussion happen in public, but that is a right of an employee or of a person that you're going to discuss. This obligation also applies to applicants. So for example, if you were conducting a superintendent search and you were reviewing applicants in executive session, they would get noticed of the personnel executive session. So you use the exception for confidential records for long-term suspensions or expulsions. You might be reviewing medical records or teacher evaluations. So records that are confidential by law would be reviewed in executive session. Legal advice. So usually that's on a specific topic. I think I met with you a few months ago to talk about Title IX. And so that's not intended to just be an opportunity for the board to talk about something else, right? You're talking about a specific topic and the public gets notice of what that topic is on the agenda. There's another executive session provision that's for negotiating contracts. That's more rarely used, typically for superintendent contracts, where you're advising the board's attorney how to proceed with a contract. Of course, executive session discussions are confidential, and only the entire board can waive privilege, not one board member. All right, so from about 2020, so like the COVID era, till 2023, we got some confusing guidance from the Attorney General on whether the open meeting law applied to committees. And so I just wanted to briefly talk to you about that as well, because it created confusion. We have some clarity now. So Arizona law requires that if the governing board essentially creates a subcommittee, so if you take legal action on a properly noticed agenda to create a committee, then that committee also has to comply with the open meeting law. It does not include a committee that is created by the single head of an agency. So for your school district, your superintendent creates lots of committees to do good work, right? That'll come forward to the board on certain things, right? So you might, like your interest-based negotiations, for example, it's an administrative committee. You might have a board member serving on it, you might not, where you're doing administrative work, doesn't have to comply with open meeting law. So that's what we thought was the case. We got some confusing guidance from the AG's office. There was a violation for another district I work with. It was really around like COVID era issues. And so there was some confusion with school lawyers really about whether administrative subcommittees have to comply with the open meeting law. So we were really kind of walking on eggshells because we wanted to give school districts good guidance and not create an open meeting law violation. So for example, there were some violations found with school districts that had meetings between the superintendent and board members where they met in groups of 2 and 2 and 1. And then there was a violation where a board member sat on what was a purely administrative subcommittee. And so we were kind of surprised by some of that. So in 2024, there was a good AG opinion that came out that really clarified some of these issues. It was for 2 large school districts. It was for Scottsdale and Paradise Valley. And it upheld the use of administrative work. So it kind of came back to the conclusion that we thought was the case in the first place, right? So if your superintendent creates a subcommittee to do some work, even if it may come before the board as a recommendation, then it doesn't have to comply with the open meeting law. And that's really helpful. So there are some nuances to that. So if your district, you're probably not doing this. Districts in 2022 and 2023, we're doing a lot of textbook adoptions with ESSER money. But since that money's run out, we're not seeing that as much. But if you were doing some textbook adoptions, those committees have to comply with the open meeting law. If the board forms a committee, right, that would be an action to form a committee, then that would have to comply with the open meeting law. And you may have policy that creates committees. So examples of that would be audit. And then if you have a meet and confer committee, that might also have to comply with the open meeting law. So that's really it. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have on open meeting law.
Ms. Windsor?
Thank you, Madam President. Quick question, and I think you already know the answer, but just want to clarify, sharing Tempe Elementary's social media posts on ours, since it has the logo on it, that's okay for us to still share or forward that?
Yes.
It's just if we create it with the logo, correct?
Right. So I think it would just be if you kind of took the logo and made it look like it was an official district action or official district publication when it wasn't. That's just confusing for the public.
Thank you for the clarification.
Mr. Bryan, thank you so much. I appreciate you always having our back on all of this, and I also appreciate a board that really works hard to follow these laws. And Eric Miller, having worked down for the state for a while, will tell you that we follow the rules, and he was grateful for it when he had that position. So thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Now, if everyone feels like they just went on a trip to Australia and you're 9 hours in and you need to stand up and stretch, feel free to do this real quick. And I appreciate you staying for that. 3.01, approval modification of minutes for the December 18th, 2024 governing board meeting. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting of December 18th.
Motion by Mr. Lemon, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Windsor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Madam President, that's 4-0. Ray can't vote.
Oh, yeah, Ray's abstained. Good job, thank you. 4.01, approval of consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
I can make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Approved by Ms. Windsor, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Miller. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Four passes, one abstention. 4.02, approval of summary. It's all under consent agenda, right? So we're good. I do want to send a couple shout outs from the Sun Produce Co-op. They've given us a donation of a value of $8,617.30. And it's and another donation, actually, it looks like, right, Heather, of $5,000 for fresh fruits, vegetables for our families. They do so much to us, so shout out to them. I appreciate that. All right, 5.01, open call to the public. I have 6 cards. We're going to have an invigorating video to watch next.
Persons wishing to address the board must fill out the request to address the board card and submit it to the board's executive coordinator prior to the start of the board meeting. Per governing board policy BEDH, public participation at board meetings, the governing board president shall set a time limit on the length of the comment period. Also per governing board policy BEDH, for items on the agenda, individuals will be called upon when the item is introduced. For topics not on the agenda, citizens will be called upon during this portion of the meeting under Open Call to the Public. In compliance with the open meeting law, the governing board will neither discuss nor take action on items raised during this portion of the agenda. When necessary, issues will be taken under advisement and placed on a subsequent agenda. During the open call to the public, issues addressed must be within the jurisdiction of the board.
Okay, our time is 3 minutes, and I'll start your time when you come up. The first is going to be Rebecca Miller. And just make sure that the green light is on when you go up there, and feel free to adjust this.
Hello. All right, dear board members, my name is Rebecca Miller. I am an alumnus of the Tempe Elementary School District. I come to you as an employee. I'm a full-time SLP, speech-language pathologist at Connolly Middle School, and in my most important role, I'm a parent of 2 very awesome kids, one being represented there, and they actually are both gifted students at Rover Elementary. And my son Jack is super excited about going to Connolly Aspire next year and joining the team there. And so really my purpose for coming to the board, I wasn't aware that more discussion was being brought up during the December 18th. I would have liked to have been there, but I couldn't. So I just want to come to the board and share some information based upon my view of the last 2 meeting sessions and discussions on the boundary changes and proposals of programming changes, and really to encourage the board to look closely at how those changes could impact gifted programming for our students in the district. I know when I kind of heard rumors about possibly the Connolly Aspire program discontinuing or being phased out, that shot a red alarm for me as a parent and also as an employee, because I think it's clear to know that the programming that we offer for our gifted students is very different from, say, honors courses that are offered at the middle school level, or even supplementary PACE instruction like they get in elementary school. So I just want to encourage the board members to go visit Aspire, see the really important project-based learning and critical problem solving that is going on in this program, and take that into factor when we are making future decisions about programming in our district. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Christina. Is it Seti Hanna? Am I saying that correct? Sadie Hanna. Thank you.
Green, correct? Okay. Members of the governing board and Dr. Driscoll, thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Christina Sadie Hanna. I'm a teacher educator, and I've worked in education for 28 years. My child, Darren, is a 5th grader at Aspire. Sorry, I'm nervous about speaking in front of you all. And my daughter, Evelyn, attended Broadmoor and Aspire at Connolly. She's at McClintock. I'd like to briefly discuss the plans to combine the Aspire program into a K-8 Aspire at Arredondo. We've heard the rumors for a long time, and I've heard more rumors that it's going forward. I was really surprised. As a parent in the program, I've never been asked what I thought about a combined program. Moreover, Dr. Pugh came to Arredondo to host an information night for parents about Aspire at Connolly. Our children were invited to attend the open house at Connolly. My child's really excited to attend Aspire at Connolly, especially for the elective options and the opportunity to leave elementary school behind. He wants a new experience. It feels like the district's been not really forthcoming about what's happening here. So I have 3 concerns. First, I know we're concerned with enrollments, all districts are. I just think it's really strange that there hasn't been a listening session with parents, especially parents currently enrolled in the program. There've been a lot of decisions in the district that I haven't personally agreed with. I didn't love the schedule, the school start time changes. We adjusted, we paid for Kids Zone. I don't love the schedule. It doesn't align with my schedule at ASU in any way. We adjusted. I'm starting to feel like this adjustment is not one that I want to make. Second, my child, like many receiving gifted services, struggles with anxiety. And when he heard that this might be happening after he had toured and was pretty sure what was going to be happening next year, he couldn't even talk about it at home because we don't have any answers for him and we don't know what this is going to look like. And finally, I have a few concerns about the district's commitment to diversity with the K-8 Aspire program. As I'm sure you know, the 5th grade Aspire class is not reflective of the district's diversity, especially in gender diversity. It's 20 boys and 1 girl. And while I know that the district has made real efforts to increase diversity in the gifted program by doing test prep and things like that with students who look like they can pass the test, there are some real issues at the 8th grade level with students who had the 94 for TD3 but don't have the 97 for Peggy Payne. It's heartbreaking when they don't have that, and at least when it's in the current school model, they have friends from their elective classes. If we move those students into one K-8, that won't happen for them. So I'd just like to encourage you to take a step back and do a listening session with parents and really listen. And I'm out of time. Thank you.
The next is Andrea Goodmanson.
Hello, members of the board and Dr. Driscoll. My name is Andrea Goodmanson, and I am the proud parent of 2 students that have gone through the Tempe school system. My son Lexon is currently a 5th grader at Broadmoor and has attended Tempe school since kindergarten. He is in PACE, and he has loved his experience both in PACE and also in the general education setting. As we began to look for middle schools for our son, we applied to both McCamey and Aspire, knowing that we wanted to have options that he could explore after going to the tours of the campuses. Lexon fell in love with Aspire at the Connolly campus. He was excited not only by the core Aspire classes, but also by the electives that were offered at Connolly. I'm here before you to express my disappointment in hearing that Aspire is potentially going to be consolidated and moving solely to Arredondo and turned into a K-8 program. I believe this is a detriment to students such as my son, who are not only defined by their giftedness, but also by their other areas of interest, such as music and the arts and sports. It is a rite of passage that many students look forward to get to go to middle school, including Lexon. And I feel like that if we do not have this option, my son is not going to have the same amount of growth that he would have if he was going to Aspire at Connolly. As a parent of a gifted child, I wish that we'd been surveyed or informed of our options in a more forthcoming way. and that what we were seeing at the Connolly tour was what is not going to potentially be what our children are experiencing if they choose Aspire for their middle school. I know that my son Lexon must decide which school he wants to go to in the next few weeks. And I also know that that is before the decision will be finalized to move the program to Arredondo. I urge you to consider extending the deadline for parents such as myself that are in the position of having to choose which program to go to, and so that we would be able to decide if we wanted to go to the K-8 option or if we wanted to go with one of the other options that our children have also qualified for. And I also encourage you and urge you to have a process that invites more voices such as mine to the table when you're looking to make major decisions about our children's education. Thank you.
The next is Philip Lemur. Is it Lemur or Lamar? Help me. Thank you, Lamar. I'm going to change that to an A. Thank you.
Madam President, governing board members, and Dr. Driscoll. My name is Philip Lamar, and I'm the band director at Conley Middle School. The Conley Jazz Band has been selected to perform at the Arizona Music Educators Conference on February 1st at 11 a.m. at the Mesa Convention Center. This is a huge honor to be selected to perform and represent middle school jazz education in the state of Arizona. The students will be performing in front of music educators from across the state. In addition, we'd love to formally invite you to this performance, which is open to the public. I've been proud to teach in TD3 for the last 28 years, and the support of the music department has been from you and the Tempe community. I've got invitations if I can give them to you.
Yep, you can give them to Heather and she'll get them to us. Thank you so much. When I looked at that card, I was like, that's not his name. Thank you for helping me fix that. Heather, you're gonna have to help me. Schlimmer, yay.
All right, good evening, Dr. Driscoll, district leaders and members of the board. Thank you for your service to students and families all over the district and for the opportunity to speak. I'm Heather Schlemmer. I'm a TD3 alumnus, former teacher here, and proud parent of 2 kids that have either gone through or are currently enrolled in TD3. I am incredibly grateful for the positive experiences my family have had in this district. I actually married an alumni as well, and my mom was a teacher and my mother-in-law was a teacher here as well. So TD3 is really important to us. I'm here to comment on the school choice options and related boundary changes that are being discussed. I recognize this is not an agenda item, but will likely not have the opportunity to attend future meetings as I begin teaching an evening course next week. As an educator and public school advocate, I recognize the complex challenges all districts face to provide students with a quality education with insufficient funding and insufficient legislative support. As a participant on the strategic planning committee a few years ago, I appreciate that the district is responding to these challenges through the lens of innovation. As a district administrator in a West Valley community with declining enrollment, I can absolutely sympathize with the difficult decisions that you guys all must make. As a parent, I have some questions and concerns about the changes being considered, though. While no decisions have been made officially, I understand that there's a lot of work that must be done behind the curtain in order to craft well-developed proposals before they're brought forward for stakeholder input. I've been at those tables, I get it. Change is hard, always, and you're never gonna please everyone. I get that, and I'm trying to trust that as more information is shared, some of my hesitations will be resolved. Here's what I'd like to offer as a consideration for you as you continue this important work. If a decision is made to make significant changes to school structures, timing will be absolutely critical. Open houses have already been held, many students have already registered for middle school, and we're entering the most stressful time of year for educators. Taking the time to fully discuss the impact on neighborhood students, potential participants in these amazing programs, and shape proposals through stakeholder input, as well as ensure all I's are dotted and T's are crossed, will be critical for any bold moves to be effective. I'm worried that done poorly, this could backfire and you may end up losing more people than you keep. Thank you for your time, again, for the important work you do and for asking the hard questions.
Ryan Carville.
Hello. I'm not as well prepared as the people who spoke before me, but I do want to second everything that they have said. Hello, Dr. Driscoll, members of the board, community leaders. I'm not as well prepared, but I'm here for a different reason, which is that my kiddo's in kindergarten and he hates school. On Monday, he spent 30 minutes before he went into school crying until I reassured him, don't worry, I'm talking to your teachers, we're gonna work this out, you gotta use your voice. And prior to that 30 minutes that he was so upset crying, I guess it was Tuesday, going back to school, I wanna share what happened the last day of school before break, which was December 20th, I think. I got a stack of papers of the work that he's done to date, a lot of worksheets. And I praised him. I said, good job. You've been working really hard. You've been learning a lot. And he said, no, Mom, I cheat. I said, what? What do you mean? He said, well, I cheat because I won't get to go to recess unless I finish all my work. Now, my kids, we've learned that he has some visual tracking disorders. I've written his teacher for the last 2 months prior to that, saying, please don't make him do handwriting. Please don't make him read. It's hard, and until we can get his 504 meeting. But I think just without the 504 meeting, she felt compelled to try and meet whatever goals are set for reading and writing. And so I wanted to share with you what my son, who's gifted also, does to get to be able to go to recess. He scribbles. There's about 3 hours of reading and writing each day that he does it, and he scribbles patiently, sitting at his desk, so that he can go to recess for 5 minutes. The other part of recess is 20 minutes after lunch, 25 minutes in 7 hours. For a 5-year-old. The academic expectations placed on these young children is inappropriate. I see I'm running out of time. I just want to ask that as we move forward, that you please look at giving them the skills that they need to deal with the social emotional stuff that will benefit all kids, and to whatever extent you can, under the state law and the state regs, please support play, social emotional development, and back off of academics to whatever extent you can. Thank you.
.01, discussion, consideration, and possible approval of the Director of Safety and Security position and the corresponding job description. Dr. Driscoll, do you want to talk about this?
I'll turn it over to Mr. Mangini.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Driscoll. This job description, this is something that we as a district are moving in a very positive direction under the topic of safety and security. It is something that Dr. Driscoll and our team takes very seriously. And so over the years, as long as I've been part of district leadership and I've watched the evolution, we've made strides in the Department of Safety and Security, but this position is an opportunity for us to really enhance and have a person very dedicated to safety and security. And so, in the past, we've had a chief safety officer, we've had an assistant director of safety, and so this is an opportunity to have somebody to spearhead the initiatives, emergency preparedness plans, school sites, all the things associated with our school safety. So this is really exciting. We have a lot of work that we're doing. Dr. Driscoll is very passionate about this work. We have obviously members up here on the board that have students in our system. I myself have students in our system, so we're going to make sure that we do this right, and this position is going to be a great start for us. Any questions related to the description?
Mr. Lemon?
Thank you, Madam President. Will we get applicants at that salary range?
So I did some research. I did connect with some of our surrounding districts and some of the gurus behind it, and I wanted to make sure that we had a competitive salary range. And so to answer your question, yes, I think it's more than competitive. And so obviously we'll, once approved, we'll post the position. Obviously, anytime we post a position, we're going to look at what our candidate pool is and make adjustments if we need to. So, but this is definitely being a new position. It's not something that we are ever going to settle with. We're going to make sure that we get the best for our district.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. McGinney. 7.01, board information, Ms. Windsor? Oh, did I do something wrong?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Director of Safety and Security
Oh,
position
my
and the
gosh.
corresponding job
We just
description.
approved it in my head. I'm all about safety, you know that. Is there a motion to approve?
Charlotte just made a motion, I'll second.
Great. Mr. Miller, second. Thanks, guys.
We have to vote.
Yep, hold on. I'm just gathering my thoughts. I was way ahead. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 5-0. Thank you, team. 7.01, board member points of information. Ms. Windsor?
Just want to say how happy we are to have Ray on board with us, and everybody's sworn in and we're good to go. So that's great. Thank you very much for being here, Ray.
Mr. Lemon?
Thank you. I think this is probably, in my recollection, the first time we've had 3 males on the board at the same time, but I'm not sure. I don't remember that far back. Just a comment, but we've always had females in leadership in this board, in this district, and I appreciate that, and thank you, those that have joined the board, and thank you for being our leaders. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Terry, would you like to say anything?
Thank you all for welcoming me to the board. I'm happy to serve with you all. It is true that there's collegiality here. I was at the new board member conference a couple of weeks ago, and that is not the case in every district. It is unique to be here, and it is special to be here. It's inspiring to hear some of the stories, and it leaves me with a lot to think about. So I'm definitely thrilled to be here. I have 3 kids who have gone through this district. One who's a 5th grader at Broadmoor. My other kids are older. They're all college age. One's a college graduate, actually. They were all at Broadmoor and then the Aspire program at Connolly as well. So I'm happy to hear all of those comments, and I'm happy to get to work with you all. Thank you.
Thank you. I too am excited to have you up here, Ray. Welcome. I'm always grateful when we can have now 2 teachers representing our district. So thank you to both of you for what you do. And second to Mr. Lemon, your institutional knowledge is, we're just so grateful to have you. And you're able to help us many times when we have to go back and say, now, why is it that we did it that way the first time? And what do we need to do about it this time? I'm grateful for all of you, Eric and Charlotte. I wish you a great new year, and I look forward to working with you guys. And with that said, I wanted to thank everyone who came here tonight on our behalf. We had House-elect member Janine Connolly. We had House member-elect Brian Garcia. We had Senator Mitzi Epstein. We had Senator-elect Lauren Kuby. We have our previous board member, Ms. Marge Cowley, who's here with us today. We've had the mayor, Corey Woods. And I say this because we are so fortunate to have a community who elects pro-public school advocates for us at the state level. And I'm grateful that they came here tonight because not only were they showing their support for us, but they were also showing the community support for our schools, and it's a big deal. I think Ray can second this too, being in other districts. It's not everywhere that we have this community that really cares about our kids, all of our kids. I'd like to thank my family who got me through this election cycle. And I have over 120 years worth of education experience between my family and my friends who are here. I had friends who met me at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, jumped in the car, hit houses. I have my girlfriend from grade school here, Christina, who took the phone calls when I just either needed to cry or scream or say, what am I doing this for? And her mom, who would just send a text and say, I love you. And her son, Sydney's here today. And I get emotional in that because this is why I do this. I do this for you guys. And I do this for my son, Brody, who's also here, who I can't see him. But there he is. Hi, buddy. So I'm most excited for what we are capable of doing in the United States of America for our kids with education. And Trent, you just loaded up the car, loaded up signs, loaded up rebar, said, come on, let's go, turned on the music, and off we went. And every single time, I'm just so lucky. All of us up here will tell you that it takes an army, and you have to be very connected with your family to be able to either A, do what all of our staff members here and our admin are doing, because it is a family affair. It takes an army to raise our children, and we all want to be a part of the best that we can be. We have teachers in this room who care about our children, not just the moments they're teaching them, but they care about our children the moment they leave, the moment they go to bed, the moment they're eating dinner. And I'm just grateful for this community and being there for them. So thank you to our families. And that, I think, is going to wrap up our meeting. Hold on, I got to get to the right page. No. I got more. I got to tell you all about what's going on, don't I? In the next, yeah, I'm not ready yet. Okay. 8.01, announcements and upcoming events. The Agenda Committee will meet on Wednesday, January 15th at 11 a.m. All schools and district offices will be closed in observance of Martin Luther King Jr. holiday on Monday, January 20th, 2025. The next regularly scheduled board meeting will take place on Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025 at 7 p.m. in the Karen Arredondo Governing Boardroom of the Sanchez Administration Building, 3205 South Rural Road, Arizona, Tempe, the building that we're in now. The Tempe Elementary School District Spelling Bee is Thursday, January 23rd, 2025 at 9 a.m. in the Karen Arredondo Governing Boardroom at the Sanchez Administration Building, same address. The Tempe Elementary Love Your Heart 5K, sponsored by TEEA, will be held Saturday, February 15th, 2025 at 8 a.m. at Kiwanis Park, which is at 5500 South Mill Avenue in Tempe. And now 9.01, meeting adjournment. Do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Motion by Ms. Windsor, seconded by
Second.
Mr. Terry. Thank you. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you so much. Oh, shoot. See, I'm a guppy. I'm a newery. Do you guys, all those in favor of ending this meeting?
Aye.
Is there anybody who's not in favor of ending this meeting? Motion passes 5-0. Thanks, guys.